Thank you, Kate. Dan sekarang saya akan mempersilakan Rohan Tiwari, Head of Media and Entertainment Partnerships di Google APAC, untuk diskusinya bersama Pak Sutanto Hartono, Managing Director emtek dan juga CEO Video.com. Over to you, Rohan.
Thank you, Jason. I'm Rohan, and I look after media entertainment and news and publishing partnerships for Google Asia Pacific based in Singapore. And today I'm pretty excited to have with me Pak Sutanto Hartono, the Managing Director of emtek, as well as the CEO of Video.com. Welcome, Pak Sutanto.
Hello, Rohan. How are you? Very good to have me here. Thank you so much.
I'm very well, Pak Sutanto. Thank you so much for asking. We're excited to have you join us for Google for Media. Now, in the recent past, there's been a rapid change in the way users have been consuming media entertainment content online. Both the accessibility and affordability, coupled with the advances of technology, have enabled that. We've also seen that the pandemic has only made it more evident that in the last 6 to 9 months, there's been a massive usage by viewers on video content. Today, in the Asia-Pacific region, we've got over 400 million users watching this content on OTT platforms online. Now, when you look at Indonesia, Pak Sutanto, you've got around 76% of the population watching this content on OTT platforms. I'm interested to hear from you. How has this digital journey, this digital transition been for emtek at large and specifically for Video.com?
Well, clearly 2020 was quite a year. We have indeed ourselves been aggressively transforming our business to digital for the last several years, right? We are expanding our presence initially in the free-to-air TV network to digital platform, initially to portals, but then also to OTT platform, which is video. In non-media, we have been investing in e-commerce with Bukalapak and e-wallet with Dana, as well as various other digital investment. Now, as you mentioned, pandemic clearly has accelerated the adoption of the digital across different platforms that we have. In video, for instance, over the past 1 year, we have more than tripled our subscription base, as well as our advertising revenue. And then we have doubled our watch duration, and we grew more than 50% on our MAU and number of views. If we look at the e-commerce space, for instance, we estimated that the industry is actually growing easily by 60% year on year. And in e-payment, actually the growth is even faster. Dana, since last month, has already grown double in terms of the number of users. I think that's clearly because while more retailers close down or have less traffic, but the desire for people to avoid cash transaction is quite strong. So therefore, the adoption on having e-wallet is quite fast.
So it's great to see this diversification, and many congratulations to your team on this massive growth. Now, you also mentioned the growth in video consumption, that users been consuming content across platforms, including other platforms like YouTube, etc. And I'm keen to understand a bit more on how do you look at content readiness as well as your distribution strategy between your owned and operated platform video, as well as some of the third-party platforms.
Our journey actually started with the content creation, content production, because we realized that with the emergence of various platforms, different platforms will require different treatment of content. So we aggressively expanded our presence on the content production by either acquiring or we set up a new joint venture with prominent content production companies in Indonesia. So today we easily have at least 8 different entities that are capable to produce content across our groups. So with this capability, we are able to produce original series for OTT, for instance, which is now becoming a very hot trending in Indonesia. We have live events, for instance, and we have moved the live events from physical now to virtual. This will require different kind of content because it has to justify people to pay the tickets to enjoy the live events. And then when we talk about social media, for instance, then it will require a shorter type of formats, for instance. And then branded contents, that's another explosion. Different brand will require different type of contents to satisfy their requirements with the brand. So with this presence, initially we have indeed established our stronger presence on our platform, which is Video.com. But video, as we discussed earlier, has grown quite substantially. We are very pleased that Media Partner Asia has also acknowledged video to be the third largest OTT platform in the whole Southeast Asia. And now with this all achievement, we realized that we have to move beyond our own platform. And then we acknowledge that YouTube, as well as other social media platform, has grown significantly up to the point that they become a very credible and popular alternative media. Some celebrities, for instance, have many followers, like even tens of millions of followers, up to the point that they're able to deliver impression, which is comparable to some medias in Indonesia. So given this trend, we realized that this year we launched a new initiative where we also want to be much more active, being present in YouTube as well as the social media platforms. And we are utilizing our popular intellectual properties, but even up to the point that we are committed to produce dedicated contents that specifically meet with different type of social media platforms. So this is something that is going to be happening this year, and we hope that we will create a much more aggressive partnership in this field.
Well, this is great to hear, Pak Tanto. It's actually quite fascinating that you're looking at the entire distribution mediums as well as the platforms for their specific merits and approaching them in a holistic manner across the value chain. Now, as audiences continue to consume a lot of content, there's also a need for all the OTT platforms, specifically in the emerging geographies, to invest in digital rights management and also invest in copyrighted content. I would be curious to understand from you, how have you approached this whole space? And what are some of the learnings that you have had along the way? What's really worked for you as you looked at protecting your content?
Well, to begin with, OTT is quite an expensive investment, right? Because number one, it requires a lot of money to build the platform. Number two, OTT is clearly consuming so much bandwidth, and bandwidth is also quite expensive. And then finally, we talk about content. The cost of content is also quite expensive. And now with the competition is heating up, the cost of content is actually even getting more expensive. So when you put all that together, OTT, as I mentioned earlier, is something that requires a huge investment to begin with. And then number two, in Indonesia, the biggest challenge is indeed to create habits for users to appreciate the need to subscribe, to pay to subscribe to get the content service. Now, that is not a habit that has already been established in Indonesia. If you look at the pay TV, which is typically as a starting point on the subscription service, in Indonesia, the TV penetration has always remained to be quite small. So clearly, this is something that will require time to educate and to get people used to, and then also to deliver the value proposition that finally people appreciate the value of subscription. Now, clearly, when you mention about piracy, it doesn't make it easier for us to deliver this value proposition if the same content is available illegally. So unfortunately, though, if you look at the massive growth in the social media, combined with the search engine, making it easier for people to find the content, and then even the messaging application that makes it people easier to share the information, are all enabling the sharing information regarding the platforms and websites that show actually pirated contents, right? So also piracy is getting more sophisticated as they're transforming themselves from web piracy to become app piracy to avoid site blocking. So this is an area that I believe working together as an industry, working with Google, with other social media platform companies, and working with the regulatory bodies and industry associations such as AVIA here, or in Indonesia, we are working closely with APROVI, the Association of Indonesian Movie Producers, to fight this issue together is really critical. Why? Because at the end of the day, as I did mention earlier, it requires a big investment to create a content and platform ecosystem in a healthy way. So this is something that the industry has to acknowledge this together and how we can sort it out together. So clearly, I think there are more works that needs to be done. So we appreciate some of the progress that has been provided by the platform owners. For instance, the feature in terms of taking down some illegal contents. So we have used that feature quite aggressively, even though the challenge though is that it doesn't discourage people from doing the same thing again, over and over again. So this is a call that we wish that companies like the technology companies, including Google, as well as the platform, social media platform owners, will also address the issue together with us in terms of how we can bring more accountability for the apps owner, for instance, to make sure that they also make sure that the content that they share within the apps ecosystem is a legitimate one.
Well, thanks so much for sharing this as well, and also for the feedback, Pak Tanto. Now, clearly, as you've pointed out, there's a lot of work that has to be done. And I think the right solution is one which is more sustainable when industry players like yourself, the platforms, as well as the associations are all coming together. While we have invested in some areas and made the tools and services available via workshops, there is absolutely a long way to go. One thing that as a company we are investing a lot in is, as we look at piracy or copyrighted content, we want to invest in making sure that what are some of the ways that we can surface legitimate content and create opportunities where users can directly access this content that they're looking for. Recently, we partnered with Video on the National Film Day and launched a product along with you with What to Watch, where users can go and watch a movie or a content directly on your platform. How do you look at search as a gateway when you're looking at users who want to access quality and premium legitimate content?
I think you bring an excellent point here, Ron. I think there are two ways to educate the user about the need to go to legitimate content. One is, as we discussed earlier, how to make it harder for the pirated contents to be available. But equally important, if not more important, is actually to provide a more seamless and easier content discovery journey for legitimate content. And this is an area there where search engine clearly is playing a very important role. And this is also an area that we in Video and emtek really appreciate Google so much. This is something that Google has stepped up a lot in the last few years. And we appreciate the fact that Google has included us Video to be the main local partners to implement some of this initiative in terms of bringing a much easier content discovery journey. I recall there are two initiatives. The first one, actually, before the initiative that you mentioned, is actually Google Vita, right? Where we in emtek, we hold quite many exclusive sports broadcast rights. And then Vita clearly enable us where you type, let's say, Champions League, and then it will pop up the schedule as well as the score of the previous matches. And then that's a thumbnail. And then when you click the thumbnail of that video, it goes directly to the OTT that actually has the rights for that particular match. In Champions League, in this case, it will be Video in Indonesia. So that's clearly an example of how this seamless journey from people typing the Champions League, clicking the thumbnail, and then goes directly to video. So this is an excellent initiative that we truly appreciate from Google, enabling the users then to find the match, not only the match schedule, but to be able to watch the match in a very seamless way. And then the second initiative that you just mentioned is basically the What to Watch feature that we worked together recently in the National Film Day. So the idea is that we are commemorating a certain week where we appreciate Indonesian movies. So we work with Google to come up with some key search words that, let's say, an Indonesian title being typed, and then it show up the thumbnail of those Indonesian titles, and it will have some logo of the OTT that carries the right for that particular movies. So that is another example how the seamless journey of the content discovery is also happening. So we actually wish that more and more initiatives like this will be happening, because this is clearly a feature that helps tremendously in terms of allowing the users to find the legitimate content in much easy way.
Well, thank you so much for the partnership as well, Pak Tanto. In fact, we are, we look forward to finding more ways and enhancing our tools to keep furthering this mission of surfacing legitimate content, valuable content that users really want to access. Now, lately, we've all been trapped. You and I are also chatting right now, online, and we don't have the luxury of meeting in person. Hopefully, in the post-pandemic future, travel will resume again. What are you most excited about in the mid to future term? What's really top of mind for you right now?
Well, immediate term would be doing something that we took it for granted, right? You did mention like travel. I have not been traveling for 14 months already, right? So to be able to jump on the plane and then visit like a place that we have gone to many times, even perhaps we will enjoy airports much more than what we used to. So that's something that clearly on top of my mind. I wish I can start doing again. Visiting like our favorite restaurant around the world, that's something that is clearly on top of my agenda as well. But beyond that, I believe the new norm is also something that has changed the way we produce content, for instance. I did mention earlier about collaboration. Now, in the past, let's take an example of bringing a famous celebrity. In the past, the format has always been physical. we have to bring that particular celebrity from wherever, the US, Korea, or whatever, in Jakarta. And then it's such a tedious process, right? The visa, the fee, the travel, transportation, and so on and so on. But now, the users or the watchers are used to seeing them virtually. So this is something that actually bringing much more collaboration, much more variety that we can put in our shows. So this is, I believe, going to bring us to much closer collaboration. And actually, during the pandemic, if I read some statistics that shows that, if I'm not mistaken, like 58% of the internet traffic is actually coming from the OTT streaming consumption. So that is actually making us feel excited that we clearly become one of the center of the attraction among all the users. So we look forward in terms of working much more closely with partners like Google in terms of how we can bring all that excitement to Indonesian viewers.
Well, this is very exciting, Pak Tonto. Thank you so much. We do hope that this wave of video consumption continues. We continue to focus on our support for partners like you across the entire value chain, whether it's content production, distribution, monetization, as well as the technology enablement for driving efficiencies. I do want to thank you so much for your time. And I also want to thank you again for the deep partnership that we have with you.
Thank you for the partnership as well, Rohan, for everybody in Google. So look forward to seeing you.
Well, likewise. With that, let me hand it back to Jason.